Well, let's just randomly jump into stuff. I was so like as I was listening, this like, and I like talking like logistic stuff around. So if do you mind if I ask you if we just get into like mechanical things about so I because I find that stuff interesting. Um,
Yeah.
I was listening to the sequencing of verses and choruses in your songs,
Oh, interesting.
and I also know like I know that like some of your recording like you did like some pieces here, some pieces there in the box, different people like it feels like you mix stuff and it felt like
Hmm.
the recording process was non-linear, like you didn't go in one day, track, make
Yeah.
a record. So did the verses and choruses, can you tell me, see, I'm trying not to make it a leading question. Well, I'll just share with you what my observation was. Did you did you already have your structures worked out before you recorded, or did these things come about as you're recording?
Mm. Well, the complicated answer is that it's a little bit of both in that, so like basically I had my own rough, very, very, very rough ideas of the songs, and some of them were not complete. And then I'd send them to William because this was like in the middle of the pandemic when it was still quarantine time. And I sent them to William, and then William would like kind of put a vibe on them instrumentally, like that would really clean up my ideas and then also give it more of a foundation. And then sometimes that helped me finish a song, I think, so then lyrically I'd be able to finish it. I can't say that was like the same for every song, but I do think there was very much a back and forth between us with digital files.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then once we had complete verses and choruses and everything, that was when we were ready for Andrew Vate, who came in and then took it from there and like really went and took it into his own production world. Um, and then so Andrew came up with pretty much a very solid skeleton of how every song was going to be. Like a lot of them did have final like tracks that we ended up going with because I think he played most of the instruments on the record, to be honest. And then we went into the studio for 3 days that we got just me and Andrew, and we laid down all the vocals in one day, and we laid down all the drums in one day, and then we had one more day to just kind of mess around and add things. So that's how that whole process went. It was like it was very different, very non-linear.
Interesting.
A
So with
lot of things were songs that I'd had pieces of for years.
that was one of my other questions. Like, what's the oldest thing on the record? Like, how old? Like, like
Yeah, probably. Actually, probably just the one, probably just like Better Kind of Love. I think I Only Smoke Cigarettes. That song I think has been laying around in my head since 2018 or 2017 or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you? What was the experience then of preparing for the first show where you're going to play these songs? How did you go about learning? Did you have to learn your own songs?
Yeah.
How
You
did
were
that
there. You
go?
were there. You were
I
there.
know, I know, I thought it was great, but I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know what it
Yeah.
was like on the inside.
I mean, I put a lot of pressure on myself too. It was tough because like a lot of my original bandmates were not, available or touring. Like Sebastian's now doing his own stuff, touring around, and Tom, I think with the time was too busy, my drummer. So I had to put together like a whole new band with Stanley and William, which made me feel really good. And so, but then also we all have jobs and we all have schedules. So really we were only able to get like 4 or 5 practices in and fully flesh out like songs that we'd never actually interpreted as a full band before live. So
Okay.
it was a lot of pressure, and
Okay.
I'm really proud of how it turned out. And I do think like I'm really glad we got the opportunity to give that live experience out there of the record, even if it maybe only happens once. Like I don't think that'll ever happen again, that we try to play the record like as much as close to the record as we could.
Right.
Um, so yeah, Brady Harvey was in the band, and Matt Badger and William Kremen, Stanley Kim, and yeah, so that was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
I do think it made me realize for like I've been thinking a lot about the fact that this record was so in the box in a way, like it was very much literally made in our computer boxes,
Yeah.
and a lot of like that I really want the next record to have more of a in the room feel to it,
Hmm.
much more like human touch, and like where you can like feel like you're in the room where it was recorded, kind of a thing.
Can hear the room. Well, like one of our, I know somebody we both like a lot, Jason Molina, you know,
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
like that, that whole record, Magnolia Electric Company, they tracked an electrical in Chicago, in a room,
Hmm.
like single takes, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a whole other level of like
I
whatever.
felt like I felt the room in your record.
We went after it because of, like, literally
Yeah,
that record inspired some of those are single takes, except for
yeah,
the
I
vocals.
felt it.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Oh
I
my
was
gosh.
like, wow, I love, like, I felt like this is a live band, when I
Mhm.
was listening to it. And I love that.
Awesome. Well, that was definitely, that was part of the goal of it, was to record it like that and to feel it, to have that sort of like forced spontaneity yet focus.
Hmm.
The intensity that comes from that is intense. I mean,
Yeah.
uh what else was I guess something else I was going to ask you. I think because I know that you had recorded it in the box and I saw the first show of it, I was thinking about have you ever watched any of those documentaries where I think it's like not behind the music, but it's classic albums where they go back to the original source, like 24 tracks, and there's
Oh,
Paul Simon, and like they go in the studio with the producer and like Paul Simon sitting there, and they start pulling up the faders as they go through.
ooh,
They went to
cool.
Graceland. I'm thinking of Graceland. It's
I
really
love that record.
so good. And he talks about each song like, oh, that's and this is there, and oh, I forgot we had that part, and blah blah blah. And
Hmm.
they're going through the song Graceland, and he's like, okay, coming up is a lyric that I cannot stand. He's like, every time I perform the song, there's this one lyric, and I don't like it, but I have to sing it because it's on the record. People love
Oh,
the song. And I don't remember what the line was, but I just remember being kind of dumbstruck that like Paul Simon, I mean, maybe on his first record with Garfunkel 40 years ago, I could see not being stoked about a lyric or two. But by the time
yeah.
I got to Graceland, you'd think you'd have the ability to like go back and change or whatever, but no. And so I've thought about that every time I record. I'm like, am I going to be sitting there like Paul Simon, 20 years later?
Mm.
I didn't. I wish I'd written a better lyric. Do you have any
Mm.
lyrics? Are there any moments on this record that if you could go back now, you'd be like, I would do that different? And you don't have to tell me which one, but I'm just curious. I'm just curious.
I mean, actually, I mean, not lyrically or anything. I mean, to me, it's just, I would love to still like reinterpret these songs in a just, I think I really don't love genre. Like, I wish that I could record my songs like three different ways.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like I actually, me and William were talking today about I really want to reapproach songs from my first two albums in more like folk or acoustic, like more like stripped down styles, because I think production to me is the thing that ages well or doesn't.
Yeah.
And
And
it's not so much like the songs themselves. It's just about, the choices that you made and how you captured it.
mhm,
And so like I think like the arrangement choices I made on my first record really irritate me. But overall, I think even if there's lyrics that I don't relate to anymore or that I could have written better, I'm very much a believer that our words are like a time capsule of the thing that we were feeling when we wrote it. And
mhm,
it's not meant to like be a thing that you feel the same way about 20 years later.
mhm, mhm.
Like that would be really weird. That would mean that I personally have not grown if I'm
Right.
listening to that song 20 years later and being like, I still feel exactly the same. Like
Right. 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 I
we
wonder if the song was like
should
Stairway to
grow out of
Heaven
our
or something.
songs.
What's that?
We should grow out of our songs
I
in
mean,
a
that's
way.
true. That's true. If it was like Stairway to Heaven or like a Rolling Stones tune, I wonder if there's like a certain threat or like I'm sure Bono can make his way through With or Without You like one more
Yeah.
time and one more stadium. Like I wonder if that like feeds into it as well. Like if a stadium is singing along,
Yeah.
I'm good for it, like
Oh, yeah.
down for that. Um,
Yeah. Well, and
um,
also I always think about, I'm sure you've heard those songwriters that kind of talk about once you're put it out, once you've like sealed it, delivered it, and you're like, this is now mastered, this is now on the CD, on the record, then it's not yours anymore.
true.
There is that. I kind of love that concept of like, and like, I'm not gonna go and what yuck somebody's yum. Like if
Wow, I've
somebody,
never heard that.
you've never heard that? That was
No.
like that was a Dan Savage thing. He would be like, "Don't yuck somebody's yum,"
Okay.
like, and it can apply to all kinds of things.
That's
And
all.
I think, yeah,
Yeah.
and it was not musical when Dan Savage was talking about it, but I think about that a lot. Like, if somebody is enjoying something, then like, why would I take that away from them by like talking shit about it or saying I regret this or I'm not going to play that anymore? It's just like if they love it, then let them love that. And I'm like, I'm just grateful if they love that.
Right. 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 Do you find that you write, well, again, I feel like it's a leading question because I know how I would answer this. Uh, do you write for the playing of a song, or do you write for the need to have that song exist in the world? Does
Mm.
that make
What do you
sense?
mean by right for the playing of the song? What do you mean by that?
Well, and I guess I'll talk from my point of view in that question. Sometimes, like when writing a song, especially like in a band framework,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like where like I'll often bring like a verse idea or chorus to a band rehearsal space, and the full band is there. And,
Mm.
we'll work on it, we'll iterate it. People have ideas, it'll morph, it'll become a thing, and then there'll be
Mm.
a moment
I miss that
all,
feeling.
where all the it's the best feeling. It's only recently has it felt like it's come back together enough to do that. But there's that
Mm.
moment where like everybody knows that we hit that thing, and all of
Mm.
a sudden you're playing the song, and the song is kind of larger than what you brought in. It's everybody's now
Oh,
in that room.
yeah.
And sometimes I found in there are some songs on this record where, my record where the playing of like the playing of the riff, the power of the drums with the guitar, that's the deal. Like whether it's fun to listen to, it's really fun to play on the guitar,
Mm.
really fun to sing, at a full blast, at a certain note. Like just like it's like satisfying, whether anybody else enjoys it or not, whether it even makes it a better song or a worse
Yeah.
song, it's
Yeah.
really fun to do. So it's
Mm.
that's what I mean. Like sometimes I think I write stuff because it's literally just fun to play the guitar like that or play like
Oh,
that.
interesting.
And that's why I was curious to know if in your process if sometimes that happens or not.
No, not really. I mean, and that's super interesting. I mean, I think that that's an area where I've always kind of been like, I miss that. Like, even my band that I had after Comfort World came out, I recorded Comfort World with a different band than who I played Comfort World with after the album came out. Like, um, Sebastian played guitar on Comfort World, but that was it. Sean Lane played drums. I think Eric Walters played bass. I think so. There's a bunch of so that record in the studio, I would say we were kind of like we were discovering what the songs should sound like, which was a really beautiful experience to me.
Mhm.
And I loved that. So I think that for me, songwriting has still always been like a really individual experience for me. And then the record is, I'm thinking more about the record than I am live. But I think that's what I want to kind of change a little bit coming, in the next couple years, is that I do kind of want to feel more collaboration and that feeling of being in the room with people, but it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do also just think like time wise and life wise, I just feel like um it's harder the older you get to have the time to get a group of people together. And I kind of feel like I've been thinking, not to make it all sad, but lately in my mind I've been thinking like I think making records is my way of keeping creativity alive in me. Like I never want to stop making records because that's a thing I know I can do
Yeah.
in all different ways. But having a band and getting everybody together on a regular, I'm like, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
hard.
It's really hard. And I have, the pandemic, I think for some people, it was this great opportunity for those folks that do really well, like the singular process, right? And I took like a songwriting class with Sue Ennis up at Shoreline. It was all virtual, and that was a context for writing. And I did some
Hmm.
quick stuff. So I did write, and I did write, but it
Hmm.
wasn't this like creative like moment of like I have all this time and I'm gonna record drum tracks in my
Yeah.
laptop. It was just like I wanted to get I missed getting in the practice space when it's
Hmm.
95 degrees out and you're all just sweating and uncomfortable and you
Yeah.
get to those collaborative moments. But like it is hard to get everybody together.
Yeah. And I do feel like with my last band, I mean, we played together for 2 or 3 years, like every week. And I think I kind of took it for granted too. Like I didn't really realize how amazing that was to like live in Seattle and have friends that you could every week show up and be there and like
Yeah.
play together. And we were never restricted by the way that the record sounded. Like we made the songs our own version of, I don't really play things exactly as they are on the I feel like the record and the way you play live or the way that you jam with your bandmates and like it's just so those are all such different layers
Hmm.
to me. They all have a connection, but they're also just like very different experiences.
Totally, totally. And that collaborative experience, like, Holly, who plays piano in Long Dark Moon, also played piano in Gibraltar. And so we've written many, many songs together. And
Mm.
we stood in the room and just looked at each other going like, that's a bad idea. I don't like your idea. I don't like your idea. I'm going to trust your idea. And then,
Yeah.
and that's on both sides of the fence, right? And then, it evolves into something usually greater than what either one of us thought that something would be, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, yeah, you
Mm.
can't force those things. Like it
Yeah.
is a gift. It is a gift to have people in your life that you can write with. Jeff, who plays
Yeah.
drums in Long Dark Moon, he was in the very first band that I played with when I moved here in 2001. So I've known him for 22 years. And so we have a shorthand around communicating while we're
Mm.
in a song
That's
that is
beautiful.
like 22 years old in the making. And if it comes down to it, like I will just drive to his house and pick him up, drive him to a
Yeah.
recording room and like, put him on a drum throne and 30, 40 years from now if I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful, Aaron. I love that's a really rare thing.
You know.
My husband too, like he's been in a band with the guys that are in Dryland with him. They've been in bands since they were like 15 together. So, and he's 38 now. So it's like I think that Ryan Clapper and Ryan, I forget other Ryan's last name, Ryan Greer. They've both been in his bands for going on 15 plus years.
Wow. And since you're 15 too, before you can drive,
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's like, well, I bet they've had some intense band practices over the years.
Yeah.
Pretty intense moments.
Like I'm definitely like envious of that,
Yeah.
at times. And I just think that, and it's not like, and yeah, it's just such a unique experience to have. I'm hoping now I can bring William, like William has now been in my musical world since like 2018 or 2017. So he's kind of like my co-pilot now. And I'm like, you're gonna be wherever I go in my music. So that's kind of he's become
Yeah.
the person who helps me fully realize my many, many ideas.
That's awesome. That's
Mhm.
awesome. My dog is barking. Dog is barking about.
Okay, I'm wondering,
Oh,
Aaron, I know it's like super lame because I'm a singer too, like that sometimes when people are like voice comparisons or whatever, but I
mhm.
finally figured out what your voice reminds me of.
Okay.
And I think that it really did like come out in this record a little more. I really felt the Will Sheff Ockerville River vibes. And
Really?
then
Okay.
also Against Me, Laura Jane Grace. Like I
Huh.
was kind of feeling like it was like I know that I'm not Like I know Against Me has some records that are a little more like folk punk than like the Too Busy song really reminded me of like an Against Me song almost
No
in
shit.
moments.
Wow, that's awesome.
Um, but yeah, I was just really kind of feeling that folk punk meets Americana meets, but with
Yeah.
that, the way that you're able to like just get into your voice when you get really passionate, and I can't describe the sound, but it's not guttural, but it's like just so powerful. Your voice is so powerful. And
No.
and it's really, really intentional, like when you get to that place, like, and you can do low, you can do more of a higher mid range. I was just so impressed by the range of your vocals and the emotion that you can put behind your words.
Well, thank you. Those are amazing comparisons. I think it goes back to that earlier thing we were talking about around like, is it fun to do, right? And like sometimes it's just really fun to yell. And it's like
Yeah.
in my mind, like I don't feel like I'm a singer. Like I just feel like I'm a yeller. Like I'm kind of
Hmm.
yelling in pitch sometimes, you know. But I love doing it. I've only been doing it the last 10 years. I didn't sing before I was 40. Um,
Wow.
so it's still a real super new thing. And I feel like, you
You
know,
sound like the kind of person that was meant to sing.
huh, interesting. Well, I love doing it. Like and maybe you can relate to this, but like there's something about when you play guitar, it's one thing, but when you have to get up on the mic, like right when you start a set, you're at a show and there's people in the room and you walk up to the mic, the song starts, you have to sing, right? Like there's this moment where the microphone's there and the room is
Hmm.
there, and it pulls you into the moment so intensely, unlike anything else. For me, do you experience that? I mean, like when you go to sing, like what does that feel like?
Yeah, I mean, I have extreme. Can you see me, Aaron? Because it said my internet was bad. Am I
Yeah,
good?
I can see you. It looked like you froze for a little bit, and I don't know if you heard. I can see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, it's funny. I get major anxiety, and I don't know if it's like I feel like it's been more since COVID. Um, it's COVID times, probably because I'm not rehearsed the same way that I was. I mean, I feel like pre-pandemic when I was living in Seattle, we were playing all the time. We were practicing every week. So now whenever I have a show or something, I just get really stressed and I have a lot of anxiety and I have a lot of thoughts going in my head. And I just feel like sometimes I honestly like don't even want to be there. Like in my head, I'm just like, oh my God, what am I doing? Why am I here? And then I get on stage and I get on the microphone and then all of it makes sense and everything goes away and everything's great.
yeah,
And that is like I don't know what it is, but it's like just I have like a freaking million thoughts going on in my head up until the second that my mouth opens and sound comes out on stage.
yeah,
No matter the size of the audience, too. It could be a really tiny show, could be a really big show. I'm going to be literally nauseous and really anxious and really, really weird feeling until I sing.
yeah,
Because I kind of feel like for me, singing is like the one thing that I feel pretty sure about.
yeah. Yeah.
Because it's my
Yeah,
voice,
yeah,
it's like that's literally it's our, it's like the one thing that I'm like, this is mine. I know how to use it. I know what to do.
yeah.
Even if I mess up, I know how to make it work because
Right,
we live with this thing.
right, right. It's the most human. It's so human, you know.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
I relate to everything that you're saying. Yeah, I'm jealous of the fact that you
Uh-oh.
are you there?
Think it could be my internet, but I don't. Yeah, I am, but I don't know what to do if it's my internet because
Well, I'm
this
recording,
is.
so it's recording. So what it'll do is it should be getting you and me, and then it'll save it, and then it'll work out.
Oh, ooh, fancy. Okay.
I guess I don't know. It'll work out. This what it'll be fine. Uh, I am jealous. I am jealous that you're starting the show on Saturday because you get to start it and then you get to chill out. Like you get to
Oh yeah.
you get to do
I
your
mean,
thing,
yeah, that's
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have to be like, I have to like be in tip top shape right up until I play. And
Yes.
yeah, and I have to be social and talk to people and all that stuff where I'm just like,
Oh, I know that conundrum. I know that you're like, can I just be the opener of my own show, please?
basically, yeah, I mean, I tried and like the band was like, no, 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 we're not gonna open our own. That's just not how that works. Nobody's gonna be down for that. I'm like, all right. And it's not like I can just go like sit in my car for two, like that would be really rude. And yeah, I can't do that.
Nope. We got to put our social hats on.
Yeah, yeah. The trick for me is to just not go out for a few days. So like, and I'm not gonna go out this week at all just to make sure I don't get sick or anything
Mm-hmm.
before the
That's
show,
real too.
you
When
know?
it's an important show, we are housebound. You're housebound.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which
Mm-hmm.
is not something I did before COVID. I never
No.
thought about that at all.
Uh-uh.
Um, why gosh, this could be a long interview as it is. I'm sure they'll edit it down for something. Uh
Well, tell me about like, so you said that you guys were inspired by like that Magnolia Electric Company, Songs Ohio record, that live room sound. Tell me a little bit more about like what went into the record. Like, were all your songs written before you went into the studio, like even all the parts, or were you coming up with parts in the studio?
the songs were written, not all the lyrics were finished because I have the bad habit of not having finished lyrics when I get to the studio and then saying, well, I'll
Oh,
just
interesting.
I'll book I almost always book another vocal session
Oh,
afterwards. So I get everything tracked
yeah.
and I have them, I can go home and then I can really work on different iterations and variations depending on
Mm.
how the music comes out,
Mm-hmm.
it's not always perfect. And often, when because I come from the tradition of just like tracking live, like you try to get drums and bass, you go in, you get
Yeah.
drums and
Yeah.
bass, right? And then a guitar track. And so I end up doing a lot of scratch vocals. So after like,
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 days of scratch vocals, I'm not really in the best, I'm not in the headspace to sing. I'm tired. I don't want to do it. So I like to go back and then usually work with whoever's tracking it, um, just one on one. Because then I have like the whole, I can
Yeah.
relax into it. I can fine tune it. I don't feel the pressure. So that's
Well,
how
that's
this works. So the
smart.
vocals were done separately. I did them with,
Mhm.
let's see, I did some with Eric Corson because Eric Corson tracked the record. And then Ryan Leva, I did overdubs. I did some more vocals with him. But all the song structures were all there. Um, Pedal Steel came in, Jay Cardon came in and played pedal steel almost sight unseen. So he'd
Oh, I
heard,
really liked the pedal steel.
yeah.
I feel
Um,
like pedal steel players are just like, it's kind of meant to be more sight unseen. Like they just come in and they feel
yeah,
what the song is and then add another layer. Like, I
yeah,
don't know. I would think that it would like almost defeat the magic of what pedal steel's supposed to do if they came in prepared with a part.
yeah. I mean, what they're so it's so like it's so magical. It's like I
Yeah.
don't, it's like, yeah. So
Yeah.
he came in and did that. And we'd played the songs live enough, some of them live and rehearsed them enough. We had enough shows because we had done a live EP, um, a couple years, maybe a year or two before we tracked the record. Um,
Mm.
and so then really it was just, and then like, I also had the cardinal sin of having an extra day where I could just add as many guitar dubs as I wanted. And so
Oh.
Eric Horse and I literally just spent a day, like the amount of guitars that were tracked on
Yeah.
the record versus what was actually mixed. Matt Bayless
Yeah.
mixed the record and he was like, nope, 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 nope.
Yeah.
Pulled out a ton of just it sounded like the Eagles, I was gonna say like the Eagles on cocaine, but that would have been apt probably. It just sounded like a lot of like just too much guitar. Um,
Yeah.
so maybe someday there'll be a remix of the record that's just like the Aaron Starkey guitar version of the record. It's like ridiculous.
I don't know if I recommend that or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to hear it, but I may be the only one that likes to hear that. So yeah, like it was spontaneous and like there was something about the vibe of that of Magnolia Electric Company, which it was both like Americana, but it was deeper, it was darker,
Hmm.
it had Crazy Horse in it, and it had like there was rock sensibilities, even in the slowness of that, you could hear. I don't I just would never pigeonhole him or bucket him in the sort of like Americana,
No,
you
I
know?
wouldn't even put America. I don't even. Yeah, it's kind of hard to figure out what
Yeah,
they are.
yeah. And I think with our record, we wanted to play around with, at least I, from a songwriting perspective, everything I've done in the last, 10 or so years has been more the sort of post-punk, angular, kind of television, you know, uh, kind of PJ Harvey, kind of like riff-centric music. And I was like, I wanted to write songs, like
Yeah, this was
all
not
songs.
centric.
Yeah,
And I
these are all acoustic guitar songs,
yeah.
and some are classic rock FM radio tunes, which I was
I
kind of.
loved Take It Wide, I think is my favorite song.
Oh, thank you. I think that's maybe my favorite on the record too.
The chorus is so catchy. I actually want to know what is Take It Wide.
I don't know. I don't know. We literally started
Oh, I
jamming
love
on
that you
that
don't
song.
know. I mean, that's kind of interesting. It goes back to that, like, it's yours now. Because sometimes there's even things where like the phrase just sounds really good, or it's like partway there, and then you're like, the listener will take it the rest of the way.
Exactly. And this song is the song where like I do feel like people do have this sort of like real connection to it. And I think it's the ambiguity of that line. Like it's not a word you hear, like take it wide. It's not a football
Yeah.
reference. It's not like um but like like in my mind when it literally came out of a jam. This is one of the songs that came out of us just like on a Wednesday night eating
Mm,
in Belltown in the practice space, drinking beer, not a care in the world really, and just
classic.
jamming through chords, right? And like we just kind of got into the groove on that song, and the consonants like take it wide, like
Yeah.
phonetically, it's very
Yep.
fun to sing, which
Mm-hmm.
goes back to that point of like things that are fun,
Yeah.
So yeah, so if you find out what it means, feel free to let me know.
I mean, I feel like All Your Mountains sounds like a very personal song. And
I
it is the title track.
It is, at the same time that I'll tell you which track is the most personal, but that song is not it. I don't know
Ah,
where the phrase came from. Again, that was like we were jamming in the room and
love
like
it.
that chord. I think I had the chord progression at home. I'd been rocking that chord progression out. And then like I don't know where the phrase came from, but it was just a killer phrase. And so that phrase then led to like, okay, well, what if that's the chorus, you know, what does that mean? Like if the like
Yeah.
sometimes how songwriting works for me is it's like, oh, if this was somebody else's song and this was the chorus, then what would the verse be about? Well, maybe it's about
Ooh,
this,
yeah.
and I like to use like places. I like the idea of place, even if it's really not ambiguous what the place is. Like um I like doing that. Like I tried to infuse a lot of Midwest into this record because I was trying to reference that
And you're
part.
from Chicago, right?
Well, I'm actually from downstate Illinois. I lived in Chicago for many years,
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm from Springfield, Illinois, which is
Oh,
situated is really it's about an hour and a half north of where the guys from Uncle Tupelo grew up. And
okay.
so, like, when I was in college and playing music, like, I could go see those guys. Like that alt country scene of the like late 80s, early mid 90s was really part of like my folk music as opposed to like grunge was out here during that same
Yeah.
time period, right? That was my regionalism. And so when I moved out here, I kind of left that behind. I was like, I don't want to write songs. I don't want to reference that because that's kind of a thing, even though I go to the tractor once a week and it's like my home base, right? Um,
Yeah.
but in this record, I was like, I have permission to reference all of my Americana alt country stuff if I want to. And this is how,
Hmm.
it got mutated anyway. But mountains was just a killer line. I just like the phrase of it. But complicate the second song, and we made the video for it.
Mm.
That's the one that is about my mom, who had mental health issues, and when I was a teenager, she would kind of take off in the car and I would just kind of sit up in my room because I could see the road. We at that point we lived right on the outskirts of town, so like I could see cornfields, blacktop road, and then the city limits were literally like across the street from
Hmm.
my house. It was in a subdivision, but it was like a subdivision built out of cornfields, as you kind of
Yeah.
do in the Midwest. And so I spent many a night, for a couple years not knowing like is she gonna come
If
home?
he's coming home. Yeah.
Right. And I could tell by, the headlights of the car, like I could recognize, the Buick station wagon that it was, like if it was her car or not.
Hmm.
Um, and I alluded to this, we did a video about the song, but like this notion of not being the extra friction that pushes things over the edge. Like
Ooh,
how do you be on best behavior to not
yeah.
complicate the situation, right?
Mm,
And so yeah, that is definitely the most personal song on the record. And if I had to think about what the other songs are about, like Mythologies, another one of my favorites on the record is about that notion that like, you know, if you're gonna write a song, sometimes you actually just have to be at home and you have to sit down and you have to fucking sweat the song out. And that
yeah.
you're not gonna find the song in the bar drinking,
No.
you know, and there's sort of mythology around like, you know, playing rock and roll and being in a rock band and that like all these things are happening and that's, you know, but really at the end of the day, like somebody sat in their hotel room or in
Yeah.
the room at home on a Sunday morning and they're like, what is the next line going to be? And you sweat
Yep.
out, you know, you're just like, that's not the line. That's not the line. So
You
that's
got your rhyme dictionary.
exactly. Yeah. And I do,
Yeah.
I now do the thing that I think you must have spoken about this years ago where you have like, I've got a collection of just random books that I will open up and I will just,
Hmm.
I won't reference his name, but I will start, you know, I will do that. I will take that approach.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also try to have a physical rhymes dictionary and thesaurus.
Yeah.
Because if I get lost in rhyme zone on my computer, then I'll get lost in all the other things on my computer. I just
I
feel like
know.
if I'm like, okay, you're gonna set out, you're gonna write a song, so you can't even,
Yeah.
don't even go onto the browser at all
I think that's totally,
sometimes.
I think that's really key. We should probably stop because I don't know what this is going to
Yeah.
turn into. I'm
Oh,
super.
I wanted to say though that I forgot to mention, and I do forget to mention this sometimes, is that I never knew I co-wrote with my friend Mike Adele. And I do think that there's something about we actually wrote a whole album together, his album. I co-wrote with him last year that he just put out. And we became just very good writers with each other. And I do think sometimes you can access that most vulnerable stuff when you have a person with
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
who's
yeah.
able to take something that it's like so big and so immense emotional stuff.
Hmm.
And you're like, yeah, how do you put that into one song? Well, you get somebody else who's really good at writing songs that is
Yeah,
not as emotionally like traumatized with the subject matter.
right.
And then you can like take the lessons and boil them down.
Very true. That is a great point. I'm glad you shared that. I think that's
Yeah,
really
I
good.
don't know if like you feel that way with your bandmates at times. It kind of helps you maybe just get a little bit, if it is emotional or if it is, really personal, it helps you. Now it's like diluted is probably the wrong word, but when you're able to put your emotions through a couple other people and then they get their hands on it and then they have their own meaning to it.
Yeah,
And then it becomes more of, less of like oh my God, here's me spilling my guts, and more about like, what did we all what have we all learned together, like about life?
right, right. Um, I found with my bandmates that both statements will be true. One, I don't care what you're singing, and two, that's not very good. So like you know, so like I've learned that if it's working, I usually don't hear anything. If it's dumb, I
Oh,
usually
interesting.
I usually hear about it. So like I kind
Yeah,
of there's a certain sort of like I trust the lack of feedback sometimes of like I'm hitting the mark. And sometimes like
yeah.
that's really good. I like that. So I don't want to dismiss their feedback, but like it's yeah, yeah, it's
Ooh,
it's a
interesting.
process. It's a tough band. I'm in a tough band. No,
Hmm.
no. I'm super lucky to play with these folks. It's you realize like the longer you do this, like we were talking about, like um, it's always about the people. It's the people are more important than the
Hmm.
song, and the
Yep.
relationships are more in people are more important than the band. And anytime you try to not follow that, you end up with nothing. You know, it's the people.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I was maybe talking to my dad earlier or something, and I don't remember, but I honestly feel like it's about memories too.
Mm.
It's just like being able to have these memories that you made.
Yeah,
Like, I could care less about you know, checking off a list of the things that I've accomplished, but being able to like think back of the memories, like that was fun, that was crazy, that was stupid, that was, you know,
Yeah,
those are the things that are that's really cool.
it's everything.
Memories and people.
Yeah. That's the hallmark
Yeah.
version of our interview. I don't know how this will end up. I don't know what will how this will work, but I will send it to her and see what they do with it.
Okay, sweet.
So excited for our show. It's gonna be super fun.
Me too, Aaron. I love you very much, and I love your music, and I love your voice, and I can't wait to hear these be performed live and see all the work that y'all have put into this.
Well, we will hopefully deliver. We are playing last, so you know things get crazy. I will send you a copy of this too, so you have it.
Okay, cool.
Have a great night. Bye.